Hello friends, I have a very instructive strategy exercise for you. It's why to play in this position, and I recommend pausing the video to evaluate the position and decide on what would you play here with the white pieces. What we can observe is that black has an isolated pawn on d6, which is frankly very weak. This indicates that an endgame should be pleasant for white. Furthermore, black has potential for a kingside attack, as after rook a to e8, all of black's pieces dangerously look at white's king surroundings. And with ideas like g5, then g4, f4, white's pawn wall near the king can be destroyed eventually. That's why the queen exchange for white is screaming to be achieved. Not only that would transition game into an endgame, but that would also take away black's attacking chances, as attack against the king without queen is rather an exception than common practice. We can take a look at what happens if white does not try to exchange the queens. For example, let's say we play a move like knight to d3. Then black continues with rook to e8, and here with ideas of g5, g4, I myself see the attack coming from black. Another move that white can try, and objectively does lead to an equality, would be bishop takes e4. Now, based on the spirit of the position, black should try to complicate matters that would compensate for their weakness on d6. So, not taking back and playing rook a to e8 seems to be the way to go. And here it turns out that black has enough activity and complications that being generated on the king side, and they all compensate for the weakness on d6. For example, if we play the move here, queen to d4, and try to go to an endgame right now, black can take on e4 with the rook. White, of course, exchanges the queens. And here you might seem thinking that we could double up on the d file and just simply pressure the weak pawn on d6. However, black is generating some activity on the king side with ideas like rook to g4, threatening the pawn on g2, for instance g3 and f4. And yes, the pawn on d6 is weak in the long run, or maybe even in the short run, but black's pieces are very active, and that's enough to claim an equality. Now instead, if we go to the very starting position, the move that I recommend here for white is queen to d4, trying to exchange the queens right away, transitioning to a pleasant endgame, or if black decides not to exchange the queens, for example, going to a square like g6, then we can use the square on d3 for our knight. Our queen has been centralized. They move the queen to a slightly more passive square, and with ideas like knight f4, I believe that right now I cannot see the kingside attack from black's perspective anymore. What I see is right now very active knight that comes with initiative and a weak pawn on d6. What happened in the game after queen d4 is that black took and white took back. Now black realized that the pawn on d6 is very weak. Here white transitioned to further an endgame by exchanging pieces. Bishop takes e4, f takes e4, rook a d1, rook f6, and white simply has a pleasant endgame where we're pressing against pawns on d6 and e4. Our knight could be transitioned to, for example, c3, threatening to go to b5, maybe sometimes to d5, and white is definitely slightly bit better over here. Now, after queen d4, I believe that the best way for black to play is not to take the queen right away, but rather just to develop with rook to e8. Then after, for example, queen takes and rook takes, and something like rook d3 and doubling up, once again, black is slightly bit worse, but perhaps black can live with that, and it's a matter of who is more of a technical player. If we do not exchange the queens in the starting position, after anything else, I believe that in practice, black should be better, although the objectively evaluation might just be equal. Hope you enjoyed this lesson on an exchange of pieces, specifically the queen in this case, and reasoning behind it. If you did, please subscribe to my chess channel. You can also hire me as your personal online chess coach. My contacts are on the right. Just shoot me an email. Wish you a wonderful day and see you in the next video. Thank you.